Good evening. I'd like to call this work session meeting Manitou Springs City Council to order for December the 10th, 2024. We just have one discussion item really to take care of tonight, and that's discussion of our noise ordinance. So with that, I believe we have Megan and Jillian here to present to get started. Or Denise?
Yeah, Mayor, we are bringing this to you. You requested this, the council requested that we bring this back to you. So we don't have a formal introduction or a formal presentation. We do have Megan, who's the special events coordinator. I'm hoping I have her title correctly, correct. And Jillian, who's the Parks and Rec director. We also have Chief Otto here, and then representation of the drum circle is here. So I think we'll open it up to what questions you may have or how you would like to proceed since this was brought on from council.
Okay, fine. I think it was several months ago, Julie, you had brought this up. It was probably in the September timeframe when, we were kind of at the end of the busy part of the drum circle season. So Julie, why don't you go ahead and we'll turn the heat off here so you can be heard.
Yeah, what made me want to take a look at this is Old Colorado City had the same problem that we experienced here downtown in Manitou throughout the summer and in the fall, which is that we would have these usually like around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. It was usually on a Sunday. Very loud vehicles come through in a group. And they were usually a combination of muscle cars, motorcycles, whatever, but they were so souped up and they were so noisy that it was really obnoxious. And I thought very unfriendly for the city. And there was news articles about it too, being a problem in Old Colorado City as well. And one of the issues was that if we only have 2 police officers on duty, that may not be enough police officers to deal with this whole gang of noisy vehicles coming through town violating the noise ordinance. So there was a question about whether there were in fact enough officers on duty to manage the problem. But then with respect to noise and the ordinance that we have in front of us, there was also the issue of how on earth are we supposed to nail anyone for violating the noise ordinance? I guess there's some machine somewhere in the police department that sits there, but anyway, I don't know if it ever leaves the police department to test any noise. So I'm glad we have Chief Otto here to inform us, but yeah, so I wanted to take a look to see if our ordinance could be strengthened or if our ordinance is fine and we just need to look at enforcement.
Okay, thank you. I think before we go any further, let's go around and see if other councilors have concerns also, so that when we bring people up here to, give us their 2 cents, they'll have a more comprehensive perspective of the problem. So Natalie, do you have
Sure.
things to add there?
Through this ordinance, and it feels a little arbitrary. I don't know what other communities have in place, so I guess I would be curious, and I'd be interested in spending some time on this to kind of develop it, because it looks like, again, it was passed in 2017, so it may need, I don't know, a little time and energy, but yeah, I mean, I get, I would say complaints, concerns pretty regularly about noise, and it varies with where you live in town and what noise you're experiencing and all that good stuff. But and again, it's part of a lively community, which is part of what we love too. So it's all these different things we have to balance. And I think reading through this, I don't know what I would change or add today based on the information we have.
All right, thank you. John?
No, certainly I'm insensitive. I get lots of phone calls from people, especially on these Sunday afternoons and whatnot, with all of the drag racing up and down the avenue. Okay. Some of these cars are all ganged together and nobody can get between them. Okay. It's obviously, it's a noise issue, but it's also there's a bigger thing going on here with us. I think the second thing is that if you live in the downtown area, I know somebody who lived here for years and years and years up over by the summit and had to move out of town because just downtown is just so noisy in terms of with some of the events and stuff like that. And what I don't understand is in some of these things that we're leasing out, let's say at Soda Springs Park, why the amplification needs to be so loud, okay, that your ears practically hurt. And to me, this isn't a cultural thing, okay? I don't understand why the dB level needs to be so loud for some of these events, okay? So those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Nancy?
Thanks. Another issue that has been brought up on numerous occasions is jack brakes up on 24. And I think that, you know, to me, enforcement is the biggest issue, and I have no idea how to do the enforcement for any of these issues. Totally agree about Manitou Avenue. It's incredibly loud, and it's not even how loud it is, it's how obnoxious it is when those gangs go through. The ordinance, I agree with Natalie, the ordinance seems arbitrary, and basically, as I read the ordinance, nothing is legal from the decibel thing, because 50 decibels is a quiet conversation. I'm probably speaking at 55 decibels right now. So that's, you know, traffic on Manitou Avenue is way above that. And it does go up to 60 or something for traffic, but so that's a problem. And there is an app that people can get. This would probably drive the police crazy. You can get an app for your phone that you can measure decibels, and people could measure it from their homes and you know, call the police and say, I'm hearing really loud stuff and I'd like it stopped, but whatever. So yeah, I think that the ordinance is quite arbitrary and totally unenforceable as it currently stands. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy. Judith?
Yeah, passed in August of 2015. I think that you said arbitrary. I would say archaic. It's almost Shakespearean, this ordinance. My favorite sentence is, no employer shall fail to prevent its employee from violating this subject. No employer shall fail to prevent. Roll that around in your brain a couple of times. So that's kind of the essence of this whole ordinance is, and to me, you know, I live over on Becker's Lane, and we have really different noise problems. They're not unlike the downtown, but we did have for a time the drag racers that were coming down El Paso and also meeting at Fields Park and drag racing up into Garden of the Gods. But by the time you identify the problem and then you know, get your meter and you measure that, you know, that's so 2 weeks ago. I'm more concerned, well, I'm equally concerned about the emails that we received regarding specifically the drum circle. I think the drum circle is something that is an event that is absolutely, it's Manitou. And I want to see that continue. And I think that most people in Manitou feel that it's an integral part of our community. And so my concern is how do we allow our, you know, really beloved events to continue and still honor and respect that this is a community where people live and sleep. So, you know, I like the app idea, actually. That's kind of interesting. But as far as an enforcement piece of legislation, I don't see how, and maybe Chief Otto, this is your turn to talk to us about how you would enforce it or you can't enforce it. Because I guess to me, maybe I need to know more. Maybe we need to take apart this ordinance and revamp it and bring it back with new technology. So, but right now, to me, it's pretty useless piece of legislation at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Michelle?
I agree with what everyone has said tonight, and I especially agree with what Natalie has said, especially since this is an older ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think, counselors, you made some good points. Yeah, I'm thinking back historically, the noise ordinance and the noise problems have come before city council, and it seems to be one of these intractable kinds of problems. The way we usually solve it is by having the winter, and that chills everybody out and they go home. We're talking about it now in the winter, so maybe we can have something in place, some improvements in time for next year. I remember historically, I've seen cases, and in particular, it was in several cases, it was bars that were having amplified music at night. It got the ire of a number of neighbors. The situation became a real headache for the police. Enforcing noise it's tricky, and given Manitou's our topography with our, close in homes and the mountains, the slopes and whatnot, everything, the sound bounces around. The acoustics it's an intriguing problem, and trying to find a working solution, I think, is it's a noble effort, but I'd like to find as close to a common sense approach as we can. I think in the past we've seen our police officers just spending a lot of time not being able to do something. And probably when you talk about the ordinance being either it's not enforceable or everything is illegal, there's probably a lot of truth to that. This is a difficult situation. So that said, who'd like to go first? Megan, would you maybe be the good person to get us off the dime here?
Okay, well, thanks for having us. Yeah, we weren't totally sure what this would all be about, so oh yeah, sorry.
Probably about 3 inches to the mic there, Megan.
Is that okay? Oh, I'm Megan Weiss. I'm the
Title.
event and recreation coordinator for the city. So yeah, I'll be very brief. I agree with what you've all said. I think 2017 is the month, or August 2017 is when I first started working with the city, doing events. And so events have definitely evolved a lot. I did some tallying today. We have 184 events that happened this year, not including December. So I agree that we could look closer at this. I have not received any noise complaints about the drum circle. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I do encourage events to be wrapped up by 9 at the latest so that they can be in adherence with the noise ordinance, saying that 10 is the latest that noise can be amplified in the city. And with that, I think I'll pass it over to the drum circle folks.
Okay.
Megan, can I ask a quick question? Do those 184 events, does that include the drum circle?
It does.
It does.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And those are public and private events. So that also includes some events in this space as well, in indoor in Memorial Hall. Yep.
What are the rules about the drum circle hours? Do you have rules?
Yeah, so we discussed being done by 9 p.m. as well.
So 9 p.m. is pretty much the shutdown time.
That's what I ask events. Typically they are wrapped up and done by 9:30 at the latest if I tell them 9. So that's well before the 10 p.m. cutoff.
And when you organize, or when you are involved with these events being organized, what is done to control the volume, if anything? What do you do?
Yeah, definitely. So all event organizers for public events have to sign that they've read our special event use guide, which links to the ordinance, has the specific decibel counts in there, that little chart that's in the ordinance. And so they sign the form that says they agree to adhere to that. And there have been times in the past where I have gone to events with the decibel reader 25 feet across the street to see what it says. And I am able to ask them, especially in Soda Springs Park, for instance, to turn the volume down. And they've adhered to it. We did have an event that wasn't able to adhere to our noise standards, and they were asked to not come back.
So just periodically somebody from the city shows up, maybe they do and maybe they don't.
Yeah, I unfortunately cannot be at every event that
Yeah,
happens,
it's
so
not
I
just you. Yeah,
don't.
we got a lot of people who work here. Okay, and when you show up, you said you bring a decibel monitor with you?
I do have a decibel reader, yes.
And are you the only one that has it?
That
Do you
I don't
share it
know.
with the event coordinator for the chamber, Jenna?
I don't share it with Jenna, no.
And you just use it because you'll occasionally just show up?
Um,
Or is there some kind of system?
there isn't a system, no. I guess the system is I check in on events and when I'm there, I bring it,
Okay, thank you.
especially if it's like an event with music playing.
I think that our events should end at 8 PM. It's been such a problem, being able to put your kids to bed and wind down yourself and as the mayor said, the sound bounces from Soda Springs Park over on Waltham and across, the way and the valley, and it's just incredibly loud. And maybe if everything, including the drum circle for the people who live near Memorial Park were to end at 8 PM, and I think it would solve certain problems. It wouldn't solve the volume of the noise, but at least it would end earlier, just as a simple solution. But thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, of course.
Counselors, any other questions for Megan right now? Nancy?
Not for Megan, but in response to Julie, I understand the inclination to use, time as the way to control sound. However, to me, that's kind of like you move near an airport and then you want to not have any airplanes taking off and landing. We live in a very vibrant community, and I think we need to find a balance. And I'm not sure that between living in a vibrant, exciting community, find that balance between that and respecting people's bedtimes and so on. And so I'm not saying that I'm for or against 8 o'clock. I'm just saying that I think we need to be very cognizant of that.
And I object to the comparison, which I've heard from Nancy before regarding the whole airport thing. The people who moved to the downtown area did not expect the noise ordinance to get regularly violated the way it does. And so it's not as if this has been this way the whole time. You shouldn't have moved there if you didn't like it. No, this is happening because we have an event coordinator who organizes all these noisy, loud concerts in the Soda Springs Park, which causes all the noise to bounce off of, either side of the valley there. And it's very disruptive. So it's not the same as living near an airport and expecting it to be quiet. That's offensive and kind of obnoxious.
Anybody else? Okay, well, Megan, you suggest that we bring forth the drum circle representative. So
Yes.
Mark, and I guess you've got a couple of compadres there. Well, if you want to bring them up, Mark. Okay. Okay, and but if you gentlemen, if about 3 inches, your mouth 3 inches to the microphone or so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mark Lee, 413 Washington Avenue, and I am a regular attendee at the Manitou Springs Drum Circle.
And my name is Nathan Graham, and I am also a regular attendee at the Drum Circle since the 90s.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, a couple things that I wanted to mention. First, I wanted to thank council for being open to working with us on, we feel that the Drum Circle is an important cultural event, part of the Manitou Springs community, and we really appreciate you being willing to work with us on this. I also wanted to mention, I think that to my understanding, we've only ever had, well, I don't know if I should say ever, but this past year, we've only had one single person complain about noise from the drum circle. And so I don't think that we should assume that it is necessarily a noise problem. Just because that one complainant was persistent. and liked to email city council very regularly throughout the summer. To me, that's still just one person complaining about the sound. I can give a little bit of background, and just as a resident, outside of the context of the drum circle, I want to say I agree with everything that I'm hearing. It is obnoxious to have loud concerts. It's obnoxious to have loud vehicles driving through town. The drum circle is individuals using analog hand instruments and is not does not involve any amplification. And there is a difference in the sound characteristics of hand percussion and hand powered instruments as compared to amplification. First, amplified sound devices are designed to put forth a much higher sound volume and a very directed sound volume, and to provide a consistent loud volume across a large space. Whereas hand acoustic instruments like are used at the drum circle, the sound can be just as loud if you're right next to it, but the sound actually dissipates. It goes in every direction and it dissipates a lot quicker. And so the impact of the sound from analog hand instruments is a lot less than amplified sound that is, I feel like, much more fitting with the characterization of disruptive and excessively loud sound that's talked about in the noise ordinance. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that there is sort of an acoustic difference between hand instruments and amplified instruments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Mr. Graham, if you'd.
Yeah, I understand what everyone's saying here. I think it all makes a lot of sense. I think we've experienced a lot of growth at the drum circle in the last 3 or 4 years, and being that we started out as a community, we've expressed ourselves as being attendees and participants. We haven't really had a focus on formal leadership and telling people what to do, how to do things, up until we started getting a lot of people showing up. And that's only been the last 4 or 5 years at most. And so we're trying to kind of get a handle on all this as well, on how to approach people. As you know, we had gone till 10 o'clock previously, and then recently in the last little while, we've been stopping at 9. And we're looking into how do we handle, because there's, with the number of people that we get, trying to evaluate as people who we really don't have any authority over this large group of people who show up while we're drumming, trying to figure out how we can communicate to people that we need, for the sake of the gathering itself, to try to be done at an appropriate time as agreed upon with the city administration. And so, we're working all that out, and I just wanted to say that we're willing to work with everyone, and we definitely don't want to be bothering anyone. To echo what he said, I've been there since the 90s, and I've only heard one complaint, and it was from this one individual who had just moved into the area. So, but every time we've heard any kind of issue that anyone's had, we've always been willing to work with, speak with people and make accessions and figure things out. That's all.
Thank you. Council, I think Mr. Shada, you've got your hand up.
I like your sensitivity to kind of what's going on here. And it seems like to me there's an overall kind of rubric with kind of sound in a community, which is, and I think Julie talked about it, you guys talked about a little bit as well, which is that I think there's a higher degree of tolerance for sound volume, let's say at like 4 p.m. Okay. And then, maybe the same amount at 5. But I think generally speaking, I think for most people, as they're trying to kind of wind down for the day and whatnot, it's just generally, I think, appreciative that people like it, that things are kind of chilling as the evening goes, right? Okay. And so I like the idea of us figuring out, how do we navigate this as a community? How do we kind of set up some sort of kind of paradigms that embed that idea that sound should be sort of kind of ramping down as the evening goes on, that the same level of sound coming out of an event at 10 o'clock at night, okay, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is not generally appreciated by people at 10. And I'm just wondering, is there something, especially with our events and whatnot, in terms of education, things in which we have ongoing organizers in which there's stability, like the drum circle? That's something that you guys can kind of implement. Then there's a whole nother matter where Megan's up against somebody who this is a relationship that we maybe have never had from them before. Okay. And this may be a very difficult educational idea in which to kind of get them to kind of understand that, over the course of their event from 2 p.m. until 8 or 9 or whenever, it's done, that they understand that, what, you can kind of programmatically do things so that things are kind of ramping down as the evening goes on. And it's a lot harder for Megan to kind of educate a one-off thing. But I love it for our institutional events that we can figure out how to kind of do that. Because to me, it seems like if we can cut this problem in half, you know what I mean? That's great progress. Sometimes I think we look for one solution, okay, and look and say, we have to come up with some kind of thing, and it's either so draconian, okay, because it's a one size fit all, as opposed to something that we proclamate sort of kind of a policy that kind of asks people. And then I don't know whether we need to kind of enforce that with DB levels or whatever. The other thing I want to ask the drum circle as well is, given our unique situation, if for an ongoing kind of institutional event, okay, in which you guys are putting on, is it the kind of thing that where we have the drums in the park can actually be from different instances of the event moved around? So essentially, the acoustics, that there's not maybe this one person, because we keep placing the stage always in one place, that they end up kind of ending up being the focal point of that. Can we be flexible is, I guess, what I'm asking about, trying to figure out, how we mix things up. Is that possible? I'm just.
Can I jump in and answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, please, Mark.
Okay. That is an excellent question. And we actually noticed that this summer, because I was able to be in touch with the person who was contacting you all about the drum circle. And we have in recent years sort of moved the drums around the park, not specifically to deal with noise, but to be more kind to the grass. Because when there are a lot of people dancing in a certain area week after week, it's hard on the grass. And I think maybe one of the parks people asked for this, but we started sort of moving it around from place to place. And so one of the weeks, sort of midsummer, this person actually reached out to me on Facebook and said, I don't know what you guys did different. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I don't know what you guys did different this week, but it was a lot quieter. And it was because we had the drums across the street at the 7 Minute Springs Park. Right. And so that really does make a difference. And I think that that's part of the solution in this case. Yeah. I think that's a really great suggestion. I think that that's part of the solution. I guess if can I just go for one more minute?
Yeah, go ahead,
But
Mark.
I do want to say, like, I feel I really have mixed feelings about this whole conversation because on one hand, I do think it's an excellent opportunity for, I think by and large, the people that are part of the drum circle really do want to work with the city and really do. I mean, the reason that I'm here is because I want to see it continue and I care about our community as well, and I want our community to be healthy. But I sort of feel like I'm cautious about wanting to frame the whole noise ordinance discussion just in terms of the drum circle because we're an easy static target for it and a lot easier to pin like our larger community noise issues on us because we're people that will come and talk to you in a city council meeting versus the people that are riding their Harleys up and down the street who you can't, enforce it on. So
Okay, thanks, Mark.
thank you.
Julie?
So just as a suggestion, I know, I appreciate the idea that moving over to 7 Minute Springs is quieter. Apparently, at least for that one complaining household, it may be noisier for a bunch of other households because it's closer to somebody's house and farther away or whatever. But it seems to me that it may be rather controversial if you move over there. It's such a tiny little cramped space. And right now, when you have the drum circle, you have that nice big area where the drums are on the outside of the circle. And then you have all these blankets put on the ground, on the grass, and all these people dancing and the kids and everything. And you can't really do that over at 7 Minute Springs. So I'm back to my suggestion is I think the drum circle attendees would tend to be happier if they could do their thing the way they usually do it and start a little earlier and end at 8 p.m. instead of at 9 p.m. rather than cramming into that tiny little space there in 7 Minute Springs. I mean, Springs, I've drummed in there before and we're all on top of each other. And then there's no room for the dancers. And it does something negative to the sound when you're all like that. You can't really hear the djembes because the doon-doons are so loud. You guys probably don't know what I'm talking about, but Mark does. So, maybe it would actually be result in more happy Manitoids if you continue to keep the drum circle where it's at in Memorial Park and just end a little earlier. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. Other council members, comments or questions? I would like to observe that I know when this summer, when council got emails, complaints from the individual, I know we reached out to Mark and some of his associates and, ask you to manage it. Just try to use as much common sense and so forth. And that seems to have worked. So, I have hope that people wanting to have a good time and basically comply with some fairly, acceptable guidelines, where, everybody can have a good time, but nobody, is up too late because of noise or whatnot. So this kind of, it's an interesting organization. I mean, it's not really an organization, it's a disorganization. Somebody asked me what it was like, and I said, this is chaos interrupted by spontaneity. And they said, what's that mean? It says, well, in Manitou, it's natural. And that's kind of, I think, what's been working to some extent. Now, it's obviously it's not perfect, but it seems if we could get cooperation out of the attendees, that's the main thing we're probably looking for. So I'm not sure that helps very much because there's still going to be a few people who are going to complain, or there's that potential. Well, I mean, when we say, no, it's not, no, I guess really it's like, at 9 o'clock, you pack your drums up and that's good. That would be the, yeah.
Cooperation with stopping.
I'm sorry, that would, yeah, just, I don't think it's not asking a huge amount. I know people get wrapped up and they're having a good time. They don't want to pack it up and leave. I get that. And I could understand there could be some tension there. And if you're the kind of the ramrods of the operation, I suppose it could be a little uncomfortable at times. So, you got any feedback for us on that? How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, if I could speak to that, like I said, we haven't really had a real formal leadership kind of take on the thing until recently, and we've been trying to be more organizational. We've put up signs with some regulations and some rules about, you know, how to behave during the drum circle and kind of how things operate. And we're looking at adding now that the 9 o'clock time thing has been there, we've been looking at adding that to the sign. We've got a couple little things we're going to add to the sign, but that is one thing we've been talking a lot about this last year, is stepping forward from a fairly informal sort of structure of just a community that meets up and some people drum and some people do these things. And we've had this habit of being very informal about how we do things, about how the habit of going until 10 and then modifying that to 9. And then, and as some of you have said, you know, there's always someone who's going to complain. So you always have those people. Most of the drum circles are very open to, hey, if we need to be over at 9, we're over at 9. But then there's always, you know, these handful of people that want to keep, you know, they have the loudest drums and the biggest drums and they want to hang out longer. And to some extent, we don't have necessarily the authority to say, you know, get out of the party. We can't, there's only so much we can do. We can say, well, as an organization, you're hurting this organization. And so we're kind of trying to step forward in that role and say, representing what the community that we're forming and what we're trying to do, we'd like to really encourage and ask people to do these things. And like I said, in the past, we haven't been as structured with that, but we're in the last year, we were talking about being more structured with that request to say, we need you to actually stop at 9. And if you don't do that, you are hurting this organization in that we're trying to be a good part of the community. And so that's something we've had to adjust to, and we're in the process of adjusting to this year. But I think I think the 9 o'clock is very reasonable, and I think it's worked out fairly well. There's been some nights where people will push past that, but we try to discourage that and we try to have conversations about it. So does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions, council? Yeah, Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. When I can't remember when we were getting the emails from this particular individual, but I've only attended drum circle a few times. But I have noticed that by the very nature of drum circle, there seems to be an apex. You know, there's an apex of activity. And I've noticed as the evening wears off, especially people with children, they're already starting to, you know, you see this apex of activity and everyone's, you know, at this crescendo. And then to me, the noise kind of just automatically starts to level off as people and families leave. And so I felt the you know, and I went on a mission, you know, to just experience it from a noise perspective, not any other reason. And to me, it seemed to me on those few occasions that it was earlier in the evening when the loudest noise was happening. And again, by the very nature of it. So yes, there's still noise, and I'm not saying that it's not an issue. You know, I think it was Megan that mentioned, you know, when we ask people to be done at 9, we're you know, we're really happy if they're done by 9:30. And I don't know if there's a compromise to be had saying, you know, we're going to ask you to be done at 8:30, knowing that you will be hopefully really moving on by 9. I'd like to leave that to you as maybe an experiment or just a conversation to be had, and let us know. But anyway, I don't find the loudest part of the evening to be, it's not an event where everyone goes and they stay there like a concert and then everybody leaves at once. They trickle in and out all through the evening. So I didn't experience it as 9 or 10 at night was the loudest, you know, part of the evening. Right. So anyway, I just also want to thank you for your willingness to be here and to work with us, because I just think that the drum circle is such an integral and such an important part of our community.
Thank you.
Other counselors? Gentleman over here, sir, in the audience, did you want to say something? One of you guys trade out and give him a chance to give us his thoughts?
Hi, I'm Chris Dwyer, 1002 Place, White Yarrow Inn, and attendee at Drum Circle. I've also recently joined the moderator group on Facebook for Drum Circle. I don't really have value to add to what Mark and Nathan said, with one exception, which is I like council's idea that this the reboot of the ordinance that you may be up to would be nuanced. And it would take into account not only things like when things stop and start, but the type of noise. And one variable in particular, which is the, if not explicit, then implied level of community engagement in the noisy activity or the regulated activity. So I think there's something of a social contract that's going on with Drum Circle. I think it's qualitatively very different than what happens with traffic on Manitou Avenue. And it's also qualitatively different than other events that are sanctioned by the city. And so I would just, I don't know how you build this into an ordinance, but I would look at the underlying social contract. What are people really implicitly agreeing to do when 200 to 300 people gather on a Thursday? There's a high level of relationship there. There's a high level of, we'll call it an informal thumbs up, that this is an activity that Manitou supports and that people are interested in. And that varies by type of noise. And the White Yarrow Inn, which is my home and place of business, is half a block from Manitou Avenue. And I have no level of consent or thumbs up with parading motorcycle or fleets of vehicles. So just something to entertain. You know, what's the agreement going on, whether it makes it explicitly in the ordinance or not.
Right, thank you. Anyone have comments or questions for Mr. Dwyer? I guess not. Well, thank you for your input. Great. I guess next I'd like to hear from the police chief. If anybody has questions for the Drum Circle guys. Anything left for Drum Circle? I guess not. Chief, could we get your take? Thanks, guys. And we appreciate the work that you do trying to manage the Drum Circle. Chief, you've heard everything now. We're going to ask you to give us a good solution. It's on you.
A couple different things. I think we talked about this, I don't know, last year and a half ago, something like that. And to answer your question, Ms. Wolf, we do have decibel meters. We went out and got some. We have one for each shift. I can tell you they don't get a lot of use. And I say that because the amount of noise complaints that we've had from 1/1/24, now this is citywide. 1/1/24 to our present day is only 27. And that's when police have been called out. As far as case reports, people cited, none. Nobody was given a citation. It was handled on scene, which is what we prefer, right? Turn it down, please. You're bugging your neighbor, and they've complied. And that's what we want. But 27 in a year is pretty good. And I am pretty sure I understand what Megan was talking about on the, I think it was Megan, on the Drum Circle with the one complaint. And I wrote down that date, 7/22/24, and that complaint came in at 10:48 p.m. To my understanding, I know no one was cited, but there was only 3 parties that were out in the park, and I don't even know if they were related to the Drum Circle or not. I have no idea. And again, it wasn't a bad enough situation that the police had to do anything as far as citing somebody, arresting somebody. It just didn't happen. We've been lucky, and I say that now, and of course something will change, but when we've asked people to cooperate, be good neighbors, they've done it, and we haven't had to pursue it any further. Having said that, I have looked at this noise ordinance, and just to be sure that we're all talking about the same thing, because when I pulled it up again, I noticed a bunch of noise stuff came up about drones and all the other stuff, but 6.08.020 prohibited noise are we all talking about the same one? Okay. I heard it earlier, the word archaic, and I agree completely. This, it makes everything illegal. Everything. And I think it even gets down to describing the type of screeching noises and I don't know. It's tough. You look at the permissible noise levels, section G, 7 a.m. to the next 10 p.m. I'm guessing it's 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night. Residential 55 decibels, and I don't know what the A in parentheses stands for. And I think 50 decibels is talking, and me talking this into this microphone is above that. I'm pretty sure. So that's low. And then you go into the commercial 60 from 7 a.m. to the next 10 p.m., then 10 p.m. to the next 7 p.m. for commercials 60, and then the 55. I don't know how they came up with those, but this is really hard to enforce, boy, because it makes everything that happens illegal. And then we start picking and choosing which one we want to enforce. And then someone really looks at this thing and goes, guy next to me was doing the same thing, or maybe doing it a little bit different and nothing happened to him. So that may be something that needs to be looked at is redoing this ordinance. I think we were talking about two separate things earlier that I heard. That's just my take on the ordinance, by the way. I thought I should share that. The drum circle, I've been over there myself. I've gone out there after work some nights, getting in my car, and I didn't see any problems at all. And I'll tell you, I've walked around there when they've been doing it during the drum circles and haven't seen anything that makes me want to go, oh my goodness, they need to stop doing it so loud. I haven't seen it, and I haven't gotten any calls. And obviously from the stats we've had one complaint over there, and I don't know who that complaint was from. But it definitely doesn't merit us sending officers to hit the drum circle to listen for excessive noises. I think I don't know what we would accomplish by doing that.
Okay, Julie?
Do you have any suggestions of what to do about the weekend gang traffic, the noisy vehicles that come through, sometimes racing downtown, sometimes they go around and around and around the roundabout so they completely screw up traffic because no one else can get in because they're just going around. I mean, just all the shit they're pulling. So do you have any suggestions on what to do? Because it didn't seem like anything much was getting done about it. And it requires, I think, advanced planning because, you only have a few minutes of this going on and then they're off, to Garden of the Gods or Old Colorado City or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think you said it right
idea?
there. Look, are we talking about noise or the flow of traffic?
Talking about the vehicles that have their mufflers removed that are super noisy.
And that's covered in this one. And it's covered and not to be funny, but it's covered in the state ordinance too. And I don't know what the decibel level is.
No, but I mean, what if anything should the Manitou Police do to try and prevent this from happening or to nail the guys who keep doing it? So maybe they won't keep coming back every weekend throughout the summer. Do you have any ideas what to do about it besides changing the law?
I mean, people can come into, bear with me a second. I know what you're saying. And I'm trying to think it through, and I have thought about it before. I've discussed it with Ms. Howell last summer. People come in on their motorcycles, and they usually come in gangs, and I don't mean outlaw gangs. They come in as a group of clubs or whatever, and same with their cars. Yeah, they've got the modified exhausts on their cars and their motorcycles. but there's not one of them that's sitting there revving it up. It's a group of them. And usually, and you said it, by the time somebody makes a phone call, unless a cop happens to be there and we get there, they're usually gone. Or someone says, oh, here comes the cops, and they turn it all off, and our officers talk to them and say, hey, knock it off. Well, they got to start up their stuff to leave. And that's when I know what they do. They rev up their bikes and their motors in their cars, and then they take off. People can come and go as they want through Manitou Springs, just like anywhere else. I don't know. I really don't know how to address that to make any impact. Changing a law, I don't even know what law you would change. Yeah, we'll have noise ordinances, and there are restrictions in the traffic code, the state traffic code, on modifying exhaust systems on vehicles. Yeah, we can stop those. And same thing goes for cars, which personally drives me nuts, that you drive down the road and you can hear their music just blaring everywhere. Yeah, you can stop them, and yeah, you can give them a ticket. But it's going to be, I don't know how much of an impact it's going to make, stopping one or two
I
people.
was wondering if you could, and I think this requires extra staffing, I would imagine, but at least this past summer, there was some consistency to when it would happen. You knew kind of when it would happen.
Sundays.
It wasn't usually before 2 p.m. and it wasn't usually after 5 p.m. It was just, if I remember correctly, it was in that. So if we had a police officer that was in the downtown area on Manitou Avenue in a vehicle with the sound thing, or do like Nancy said and get the app on your phone. That sounds really easy. Whatever. Then when they come, you're prepared. And if they don't come, well, you're there anyway. It doesn't hurt to have police presence. Is that something that you could look at? It's just 2 days a week, and it's just pretty much during the summer and the warm part of the fall.
I'm not opposed. Excuse me. I'm not opposed to that at all. And we try to do that, setting up roving foot patrols on the weekends, in the busy time in the summers. I think we can definitely focus more on that. We can. And I know I talked with Denise. We talked about it over the summer, and she was telling me, I think they were a VW group or Bugs. I don't know what it was. It was a group of them, and they would come, I think, at anywhere between 2 and 4 o'clock on a Sunday. And I put it out to the officers and the supervisors, hey, go hang out up there. I don't know if it worked. And the only reason I say I don't know if it worked, because I didn't hear anything else about it. So maybe it did work.
Just the other comment I want to make, and then I'll stop, is just for the record, when you said you only got 27 phone calls, that's because, in my humble opinion, it's a pain in the neck to call the police. You really can't call the police. It's either a 911 call, in which case, yes, you can get through within 10 minutes. Or you call that stupid number downtown and you go through all those prompts and you never get through. I mean, I've given up on it. I don't even bother anymore. So the fact that the police don't get that many calls to me is kind of irrelevant, because we still don't have a good system for our local people to call the police. Unless it's a 911 call, forget it. It's irritating as all get out. So the fact that you don't get that many calls to me doesn't mean that there aren't lots of people having complaints about it. But I mean, that's not your fault, but
Good, thank you. Denise, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do want to mention this summer, as you know, the police, we haven't been fully staffed. So trying to get staff that will work the overtime has been somewhat challenging, and we want to make sure that we don't burn them out or have them working long shifts. That's unhealthy for everybody. We are getting staffed. We're very close to being fully staffed, hopefully fairly soon. And I think that will help this summer. Also, I think the other thing is as we see things that happen on a reoccurring basis, usually I hear it or you hear it and you reach out to me, and then Bill and I try to manage that as we could. And that's what we tried this summer, I know, with the cars and the concerns we had. But some of that was just due to staffing and the number of staff that we had.
Well, if I may, and that's true. We hired 2 this month, but that's not what I wanted to say. But we hired 2 new officers this month. There's, and we've talked about different things, you know, over the last couple of years since I've been the chief, traffic issues and noise issues and homeless issues. And if you want to attack these problems, you've got to have, I don't know how to say this the right way, but you got to have a lot of people working for you, and you've got to put them in that direction. That's why these bigger departments that can afford it, they have traffic units, and they have these dedicated units to deal with drugs and homeless issues. We don't have that, and probably no small town municipality in this country has that kind of money to devote towards that. So I guess what I'm saying is we do what we can with what we have, and our officers are dedicated, and when we ask them to do something, they go out and they do it to the best of their ability. We know in the summertime that it's much more busy, and our officers get a lot of calls. And I've said it before, we help out Green Mountain Falls, we help out Colorado Springs and El Paso County, and in return, we get that. And my point there is, the crime may not have happened here, but an officer from another jurisdiction needs help that's close, and we're going to go help them because we get the same in return. That's just how it works. We stay pretty busy in the summertime when all the people are out and they're running around, it's warm. Now, not so much, right? But we do what we can with what we have, and that's my whole point. And we address each issue as it comes. We don't ignore it. I don't doubt it, and I tend to agree with you when it comes to calling the police on a non-emergent line. I don't call them where I live either, because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to wait, and by the time they come out there, it's going to be long gone, and they're going to go, okay, we'll do what we can. We'll see you. That's the reality of it. So I get it. I get the frustration. If someone has a better solution or a better idea, I would definitely explore it. I'm not opposed to going a different way and figuring something out.
Other comments or questions from council?
I'd like to find a way that we can find extra funding, even if it's just for the summer to get additional police, but I don't know if that's even realistic. Do police, they don't like moonlight and just do like a 3-month job? It's either a full-time position. I mean, it's a year-long, they don't have like contract police, do they? That, do that kind of like the floating, the traveling nurses, the traveling doctors that go around to different hospitals to fill in around the country.
They do.
Is there such a thing for police?
But they come, I don't know if it's my voice or this. They do, but they only come from other agencies. And I would not let somebody come be a cop in Manitou Springs that travels around from different places, and all of a sudden you're going to be a cop with all the cop powers in Manitou Springs.
Or what if they don't have all the cop powers in Manitou Springs? What if they're just in charge of policing the streets for the speeders and the gang vehicles that come with no mufflers? What if they're just in charge of what we're talking about for the summer?
I guess that would be possible if you could count on those people they're contacting to be law-abiding citizens who will listen to authority and not escalate it to anything further. Now, that's not a big jump either. That's how a lot of these things happen, where there's major problems with police and people that they end up talking to. They don't want to listen. The only thing that I've seen done, and actually before I retired, I know that El Paso County Sheriff's Office used to come down and take jobs down here. And I talked to Bill Elder before he finished his term, and he said that he would not allow his deputies down here anymore. And I asked him why. He said, and I think it had been like a year or two prior. And I'm not even sure who the chief was or where the direction came from. But his deputies who were working in Manitou off duty were told basically, don't be a cop, just stand there. And he said he wasn't going to leave his deputies in that position. I said, well, I completely agree with you. Whoever was running the show then, they wanted the presence and nothing else. And they had complaints. So he said, okay, no problem. Then my deputies are not going to be allowed to go down there and work extra duty. Now I haven't approached Sheriff Roybal about it, but it's something I could look at. But they're going to be cops.
Denise?
Mayor,
please.
I guess I would ask for direction of what you want and we'll figure out the how. So you tell me what you want and then we'll go back and we'll figure out how to make that happen and what that may look like. And if we can make it happen also based on other things. So I know part of this discussion was maybe change the time of the noise ordinance, if that's something that the consensus of this council wants. If you want some additional staffing during the summer on weekends, tell me that that's what you want and you're willing to have that be part of the budget, and then we'll figure out how to make it happen. But instead of getting down to all the details, if you give me the what, I'll go back and figure out the how and come back to you.
Thank you. Maybe be worthwhile just going around the table here real quick and seeing what council's priorities are. Michelle? You?
Yes, I agree that the noise ordinance needs to be updated. Julie, yes, as far as the drum circle, 8 o'clock, but it is an integral part of our city. And so I think 9 p.m. is fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judith.
I rarely don't have an opinion. After reading this ordinance and looking at the tables and the verbiage, I don't think changing anything about this ordinance is going to have any impact. And I think, in my personal opinion, is that would be a waste of time. The way that, and while I appreciate the idea of increased staffing, especially in the summer, for the things that are happening in my section of town, as you probably well know, we'll get a group of speeders. They will come in a big group and they will do El Paso and they'll do Garden Lane, and they'll just be totally obnoxious for a short period of time, and then they're gone. And it's not always constant, it's intermittent, these problems. So I'm really definitely at a loss to even know how we would approach this problem. I guess one of the things I'd want to ask you is that if this is constantly happening at the roundabout, are you getting complaints from businesses? Are we hearing from businesses or other visitors or residents that this is also a safety issue? Because then I would definitely want to escalate this, especially in the downtown core, to adequately staff that. So, I mean,
No. I haven't received a phone call or a left message of an email addressing that at all. I've heard about it from Denise, who's heard about it from residents, but I haven't personally received anything.
Denise, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to mention, I've been downtown on Sundays and I've talked to some of the businesses, and I want to share that the businesses kind of enjoy it. They believe it brings other people down. They like to observing it. So I'm not saying that I'm just giving you the feedback that I've heard from some of the businesses. They enjoy having the different cars come down. They believe it shows, it allows people to see different cars and those type of things. So I just want to share that. That's not everybody, but that's a couple of the businesses.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
Do we have I know that I believe city clerk was updating all their ordinances and so on. Do we have a rotation that we review ordinances on a periodic basis at all?
I can check, but Nancy, Counselor, or Mayor Pro Tem, not to my knowledge. we review them as they come up and as things are needed. I was looking at the City of Colorado Springs noise ordinance, and ours replicates some of that verbiage. So I believe some of ours came from the City of Colorado Springs noise ordinance, and you can pull it up and you'll see that it replicates some of it.
I would like to see the ordinance refreshed. I think it's worthless the way it is, or not entirely worthless, but pretty worthless the way it is. And I like the concept of, or I would go along with the concept of titrating responses. So for instance, in the summer when it's light, much later, I think events could, you could have it a bit of noise a bit later in the day or in the evening. I, for one, would really miss the lights at the drum circle if we asked you to close up too early. But primarily I find the ordinance worthless as it's currently written. So I would like to see that refreshed at some point, but to me, it's not a huge priority. So there you have it.
Okay, thank you. John?
Well, yeah, I have a difficult time trying to figure out how this ordinance provides us sort of kind of some guidance to solve some of these problems. My takeaway is that I think with these community-oriented cultural events, okay, I think we have a lot of sensitivity on the part of people who are doing those events to, on an ongoing basis, solve the problems, okay, without us getting into all of the nuances of how we craft a perfect ordinance to fit that. My suggestion is that maybe for something in which we have sort of like a relationship with somebody in which they've not done an event here before, or maybe they've only done 5 events, maybe they have sort of kind of some training wheels, okay, in which the event has to kind of shut down earlier, okay, and maybe they kind of get them in the groove instead of us having maybe some of these events that kind of come to town and then suddenly Megan is, getting calls from home that something's like really wild and we don't have any relationship. So to me, it seems like this relationship thing here is a key component that to me keeps coming up. And I don't know how we kind of thread that in terms of how we would manage that with special events. I don't get the same thing that Denise has about this Sunday afternoon business, okay, which is a lot of speeding, okay. There are some of the antics in which are entertaining. Some of it is pretty menacing, okay, that you cannot cross the crosswalk, or they get all gang together. And then if somebody tries to get into the Rexton turning circle, then there's all of this flipping off and all of this harassing of people who are coming down from the cock. So it's a complex thing that's happening on Sunday afternoon. And all I can say is, it seems like to me, the chief needs to come over and see what's going on Sunday afternoon, okay, in real time to see what's happening, and staff, okay, and us figure out, how we manage it. I don't know how the ordinance provides us a lot of guidance with it. I think we need to get a better common understanding as to whether we think all of these antics that are happening on Sunday afternoon on the avenue that goes all the way down to Old Colorado City, is this a good thing? And come up with a common language with it? Or are there some aspects that we don't like? Okay, and how we manage it. Seems like to me we need more information and we need more eyes on the ground to figure out kind of what's going on with it in terms of that. So I don't see how there's a magic solution to that other than just to get a better common cultural language about it. So going back to to me, the community event kind of things, to me, I have a lot of confidence that those can self-manage. Okay. And I think it's happening that way. I just am interested whether anybody has any ideas about what I call kind of the training wheel thing of the 1 or 2 kind of events. And maybe, you've got to kind of earn your stuff, with Megan, so to speak, before you kind of then can maybe have an event that goes longer or louder or whatever. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Natalie? Or Chief, I'm sorry, did you
I'm
want to?
sorry, just real quick.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
And I've said this before and not arguing your point at all. How do you want us as a police department to pick and choose which event is okay? The clubs that are in their motorcycles, the drum circles, we want them, but we don't want the car. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, what do you expect from your police department? Which one do you want us to enforce and say the other one's okay? I guess I'm looking for some direction on that, because if you look at this ordinance right now, everybody's in violation. So do we ignore one and allow the other, or vice versa, or what?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's good.
I'll take a whack at this.
What, okay, John, if just kind of be brief, okay?
Yeah,
'cause
I'll
other
just
people
take
need
a
to talk
whack at it. To me, I don't know that this ordinance or even a refresh or whatever is going to get us where we want to go. Okay? I'm not clear that there's some magic ordinance and some only one way the police department handles every single thing is going to work. Okay? I think this was sort of kind of a very useful meeting for us to have a discussion in a work session. Okay? And I think there are some times in a work session, we kind of agree that there's no magical solution. Okay? We've had a good discussion. We've created some common language. Okay? And everybody has got kind of a heightened thing, and maybe it's a process that gets us somewhere, but I don't see how there's a magic solution. Thank you, John.
Okay, certainly. Merry Christmas. Okay.
That's all you get.
Okay. No, not even Cole. Okay, no, that's fine. Sorry. Natalie, please.
I would like us to update this ordinance. I'm guessing that there's one that we can grab from another community and maybe even look at the state sound ordinance and see if that can help us so that there's just a little more semblance of something here that's useful. In terms of solutions tonight, if I was pushed, I would probably just say I'd be comfortable changing the hours to 9 PM during the week and keep them at 10 PM on weekends. But that's just if we need a solution this evening. And then as far as the Sunday piece goes, I feel like now that we're talking about it, it'd be nice for you all to maybe, I don't know, spend a little more time this summer to kind of look at what's happening and see what suggestions you might have for us that we could put into place that would sort of help maybe manage the noise and some of the problems like blocking crosswalks and anything that appears dangerous so that we can kind of mitigate that. But I feel like there's research that needs to be done before there's a solution that we could implement on our end.
Thank you. Julie?
I too would like to see the ordinance updated. I don't know that it's going to create any magic solutions, but we should at least have an ordinance that we can understand and that makes some sense. So, I mean, that's just always a good thing to have. I wouldn't say it's urgent, but it's important. And I hear that it would help the police too, because as the chief said, you don't really want to enforce an ordinance when you're going to be accused of selective enforcement because everybody's violating it all day long. I do feel that we should put a time limit on when noise from cultural events continues. And I don't think it should be 10 PM on the weekends. I think it should be 9 PM and I think it should be 8:30 on weekdays, including drum circle. I'm a drummer. I love drumming. I'm not anti-drumming, but I feel for people who have to live within earshot, who have, want to go to bed and have to get up early. And I don't think it's going to kill the vibe or discourage people from attending if it starts a half hour earlier and it ends a half hour earlier. It's still going to be fun. It'll be fine. I hear the police chief that, if he had more staff, he could get more done, and he could have more staff if we, choose to provide more through our budgetary decisions, and that's not going to be something we discuss today, but I would like to look at the time changing to 8:30 on weekdays and 9 PM on weekends for all events in town.
Okay, thank you. And I guess, yeah, I think there's been some good comments here. I guess one of the things that, if I remember correctly, the ordinance that we currently have, which seems to be fairly useless, I believe that was created in August, probably August of 2017. And my suspicion is that the city council at that time was getting noise complaints throughout the summer. That's when we typically have them. And they tried to craft something, under the heat of the moment. So it may not have been as well thought or as well considered as what we've got now. And I would be okay with refreshing the ordinance. I don't have a whole lot of hope that it's going to make the world completely better, but it might give a little bit of, give the police some teeth. So I guess I could go with that. I think really when it comes to things like that, we talked about the traffic and people driving around the Ruxton roundabout. Seems to me like we have other laws to enforce that or to deal with that problem. So I wouldn't try to necessarily put that solely in the purview of the noise ordinance. Relative to the evening hours, I guess I could see shutting down a little earlier, kind of like what you were talking about, Julie. But we could discuss that a little bit later. And my thought, I guess, would be if the drum circle could start earlier and then end a little earlier, if that would be possibly okay. 9 o'clock in the summer doesn't seem unreasonable to me, provided it is 9 o'clock. I think we have the sprinklers coming on at 10 o'clock. So that's also been a good pragmatic solution as well. So I guess that'd be my thought. Council, if I could just get a show of hands, who would be okay with refreshing that ordinance? Do we have okay, I think, okay, but it's not urgent. So Denise, I think if Jeff Parker could take a look at giving us something, we pretty well agree that it's not useful. Chief, perhaps you would have some input to Mr. Parker as far as what you think would be helpful for your officers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, certainly if the drum circle people could stay engaged, we don't want to shut down people having a good time, but we want to make sure everybody has a chance to have a happy and comfortable life in Manitou. Oh, Council, do you have anything else? Denise, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Mayor, we've got direction to update the ordinance, and I would make sure that that's done before the summer. So we'll try to get it done in April or May before the summer begins. However, I don't have clear direction if you want the time change. I've heard 8:30, I've heard 9, I've heard 10. So could I get some type of direction of what you want for a time? Or do you want to just leave that blank and you can discuss that when we come back with an updated ordinance?
Personally, I'd favor just leaving it blank for now, but if other council members have a different take, a good time to say it. I think council's direction is to leave it blank for now.
Okay,
Is
thank
that-
you. So we'll just kind of we'll leave it as is,
As
and we'll
is.
wait for you guys to give us direction when we bring it back.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
John,
thank
did
you.
you have something? Okay, great. Okay, super. Well, oh yeah, sorry, Natalie.
I don't know if it'd be helpful to know how many events are impacted by these decisions too. So if we were to say, change it to 8:30 to say that impacts these 25 events or it impacts this one event. I mean, I just don't, so that there's some connection. So it's not as arbitrary, I think, as some of.
Yep, that sounds great. Well, we'll put together a group to look at this ordinance so that we both have everybody's perspective internally and then go from there. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming and for your comments. We appreciate it. Well, council, we are at the council correspondence item on the agenda. Does anybody have anything? I guess not. Denise, do you have anything? City
I
administration.
was just saying how cold it is. Yeah, I want to recognize staff. Last night, we had several water main breaks, and they worked until early in the morning and they were back again. This morning, we were able to get both of them repaired. And we also called in our agreement with CSU. They came in to help last night. So I just want to recognize the staff. It was on Facebook. We had a resident that bought bagels for them and things, which means a lot to our staff. So it was a tough, long evening, but they were able to get things done and completed. So thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, well, there being no further business and this being a work session, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Oh, and just a quick reminder, we don't have meetings on the 24th or the 31st. So next week, the 17th will be the last meeting of the month.